I started school when I was 4 years old, which was unheard of. But my older brother, I always went where my older, that was Howard. Wherever he went, I went because the two of us were together. So he started when he had to go when he was 6. So I went with him. Some of the time there was 4 of us in the school. Some of the time there was just 2 of us. And some of the time when the lumber camps were there, we were crowded. We had 5 or 6 kids in the school. And but the school, where the school's at is all woods now. It's all going back to nature, which I guess is good. An old crosscut saw is probably at least 100 years old. The teeth are normally an inch long. And it's been filed and filed and filed. And it gets a wooden handle over here.
Wow, look at that. Wow.
See there?
Look at the design of the
Wow. Yeah.
Look at that.
It's probably 100 years old, give or take quite a few years.
Yeah, Sherry found that on that property.
Oh, he found it. Wow, that's neat.
Francis Jordan. I was born in Syracuse, New York. The only one out of my family was born in a hospital.
My name is Carol, and I was born in Watertown, which no explosive thing except that I just added to the crowd in my family. My grandmother was a nurse doctor. She did deliveries and went to help people all the time. And it came down to I'm an EMT, and it just comes natural. And then you have the nurses have it, some people don't. They try to do a job that's not fitted for them.
Right.
And when you know a good nurse and she touches you, know she's a good person. And that's the way I always felt. My grandmother was the same way.
Do you think, like with your daughter, like that kind of perception, like do you think it has to do with the experience of living, working with life and death and that kind of?
I think probably we had a terrible accident down here at the corner. And I had to bring her back from the dead.
This is your daughter?
Yeah. When she
The
was
same
about
daughter? The
Vicky.
Vicky?
Yeah. Both my girls were in the accident with me. A 10-wheel Mack truck ran over my car.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And there wasn't anybody around for quite a while. He found us.
Oh, God.
You know, when you experience death, that makes you another person. You have perceptions you didn't have before. There's people that you may know that have feel differently about life when they get done.
Yeah.
Because it kind of wakes your brain up. That so you've got something to do here. You've got to accomplish something.
Boy, but I mean, you played just as hard as you worked.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
But there was no TV. There was no radios. Hardly.
Yeah.
Right.
They were noisy.
You made your recreation.
That's exactly.
Pass the time
So
somehow.
when I pulled these guys on the sled behind the car.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
When you were a kid, you never got towed on the back roads when you were a kid?
Well,
Toboggan
on a
or sled?
bicycle once, which is pretty stupid. Hanging on a car and riding your bike.
Oh,
That
that's
was-
a bad deal.
Yeah.
No,
My
this
sister
is
and
a long road.
Well, we hooked two or
How
three,
many people were
two or three
behind?
sled together, and then you hook a rope on it. And old
That's
Blossom used to tow us. Shirley Yard would tow us on the back road, where there's no traffic and stuff, right?
So what if you
And then
over
the
a
guy in the
hill?
front, if you zigzag across it like a whip, that guy in the back.
Jeez. Sounds a little dangerous to me.
Well, she told us one night, but George Jordan's on the main road. She's coming down through,
Way up.
and
towards the
she's
line.
zigzagging because we're on a toboggan, and she's zigzagging like that, trying to whip us, right? Well, she's zigzagging right up on the
Once
snowbank.
those guys pull, all that weight, and then it yanks your car, actually pulls on the car.
Oh, you could feel
So
it.
here they are, whipping like that.
Me and my brothers are behind her.
I'm John Constable, sometimes the third and sometimes junior.
And I'm Jane Constable Rockwell. I'm the oldest of 4 of us.
And I'm Mary, Constable Crouch.
So I wanted to also hear, like, with your dad's connections without, the Tug Hill and are there any other stories that you remember or people that he knew?
I've just got a couple. They're real short ones.
Uh-huh.
They spent some winters here, and they spent some winters in Lowville.
Okay.
And he said back in in the 20s they didn't have snowplows, especially in the little villages.
Uh-huh.
So they would roll the snow, and they would actually take horses, and they had these big rollers, much larger as you would see in a lawn roller, and they would pack the snow down, and then the horses with the sleighs would go over them.
Uh-huh.
And they would actually put skis on some of the cars and tracks on the back of them and drive it on the packed snow.
On cars?
Mhm.
When they got the cars?
And also from here, when they would go to school, they would have horses and a sleigh, and they would pick up the town kids on the way. They'd wait and they'd pick them up. And of course, they had all kinds of warming things.
Well, he told me a couple of stories of trick-or-treating, and he said, if you went out and if you got some nuts and an orange, he said that was a big deal to trick-or-treat up here. But one year, and I can't remember the guy's name, maybe it would come to you, Mary, but there was a farmer, and he was pretty mean, and the kids didn't like him, so they disassembled his wagon, carried it up, and reassembled it on top of the barn.
See, and my dad, he was a prankster too. I mean, really, they did fun stuff, not bad
Not
stuff.
vicious,
But he was a real, and very inventive also, of thinking things and how they can be done and have fun. They had a lot of fun here. Oh, the other thing is too, my youngest aunt, my dad's youngest sister, had a friend who had an airplane. Now this is back in, God, when would that have been? 25?
Oh, it was probably in the 30s. I think it was
30s.
later.
30s.
Okay, well, anyway.
She was approximately
She was
19
a
or
teen.
20.
I don't even think I think she was a teenager. I think she was
Yeah,
17
she
or
was
18.
There's
older.
pictures.
No,
Anyhow,
she was
the
older.
plane crashed in the front yard of the hall.
Yeah, it crashed. Right,
In the-
right out here.
In the
And
field.
I think there was a newspaper article.
Yeah,
Oh
he was
my
he was
God.
either from Rome or Utica, and he had an airplane. He was going to take her for a ride, and they crashed right out here.
Did they get killed?
No,
No,
Oh, no.
they both walked.
they just crumpled the thing up and walked away.
Who would like to start? This is our ancestral home,
Mhm.
built in 1819.
Finished. Yeah, it took quite a few years to get it done.
How many years was it?
I think
It was
took-
12.
Was it 10?
I was going to say 7. We really know the history, but I think it started in 1812, and because of the
It was
war,
1812 to 1819.
and because of the war, they had a hard time getting
Workers.
what they needed and the people, and so it was 7 years.
When something interesting Dad pointed out to me, and I hadn't thought of this until it was brought up, the stone was actually quarried, I want to say in Lions Falls.
I read Talcott.
Talcott.
Was it Talcott's?
Yeah.
Talcott.
And Dad showed me where they came up through the garden with the big
Wow.
wagons full of stone to build the hall. And if you look, you can actually see a reasonably smooth and wide path to this day.
And that owner was hurt when they were putting in the portico. Those huge rocks slipped and hit him in the leg, and he died from it. It was a couple years later. So actually it took 3 generations for anybody to really be able to live here.
Wow.
I was born 1929.
1929. Boy, just before the Depression, right?
That's just what that fellow from Vermont said this morning. Matter of fact, I think it was just about the beginning of it.
Yeah, early 30s, right?
I think the dates even are very close. Yeah.
You would have been very little, but do you remember much about those years?
Oh, yeah.
What was it like here?
Well, money was pretty scarce.
Was gasoline scarce too? Everything? Sugar, everything?
That was World War II.
Okay, that was later.
Yeah, that was World War. Well, I mean, yeah. Well, World War II that broke out what
40.
I think. Yeah.
40s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, ration. And the worst part of it was my mother wasn't a citizen. My father was.
Where were they from?
Germany.
Germany. You did tell me the Alsace-Lorraine.
And she wasn't a citizen. And of course, she had to register every year in Blauville because she wasn't a citizen. We didn't have electric. We got electricity about 1942 or 43, somewhere in there. And my father bought me a radio before the electric was ever on. Little. And I come home from school and I couldn't believe. I started turning buttons. A voice come out of that box. I never heard a radio before. And a voice come out. And I don't really remember how long it was, a week or two or whatever it was, the BCI come and took that radio away from me. They had to take it and check it out to see if my mother was communicating with old Hitler over there. Oh, you don't know what we went through, boy.
My goodness.
Just because she wasn't a citizen.
What was BCI? Bureau of Criminal Investigation.
Something
Just
like that,
figured-
yeah. But they brought the radio back again after they checked it out.
Can you believe it?
And like you say, everything was rationed. I hid coffee upstairs in the attic, hid it. Mom made some kind of chocolate syrup, and I hid that, and I never did find that again. In the horse barn, in wooden sat buckets.
I was born in North Redfield, which we call Greenboro, because it used to be a little settlement back years and years ago. I was the town clerk of this town for 30 years, from 1977 till 2006. Yeah. And then I kind of took a little break from public service for 4 years, and then I ran for councilman, and I'm in my 5th year, I believe, as town councilman. I was a charter member of the Redfield Auxiliary, which formed in 1980, and my husband's been a fireman since 1967.
Wow.
I'm sneaking in on 50 years
Wow.
of fire department.
So you both contributed to your community.
Oh yes, constantly, still do.
These are all good.
I heard you ran a club that I don't know how to pronounce the name
Yes,
of.
I worked in the Oswego Club. It just comes from Oswego County and Lewis County. They just changed the syllables there. I worked for Bethel Falvey first. It started in 1985. I worked for her for a couple of years, and then I took over because she was getting in poor health. And I worked there until they decided to sell it. Niagara Mohawk did. Kids were
College. Or maybe
I worked through there when you all were in college, so I probably worked there 10 years. It was only open in the summertime. It was a fishing club. And, so there were like members from Niagara Mohawk, and there were also like private members, a lot of them from Buffalo. And they would come up fishing, and then I would have business meetings from people from NIMO that would be, 20 at a time or so. And I basically was the cook and the bed maker and the laundry lady and the whole thing there. I did always
Cook and bottle washer.
yeah.
Wow.
Most of the time I'd have help, with the people to serve, so.
So you guys both are pretty involved in Niagara Mohawk then.
Well, yeah, sort of, yeah. Yeah.
I'm Leona Clemens Chernosky, and I was born right here on Cummins Road, over a mile and a half. And my mother called it the shack. She didn't like that place very well. And that's where I was born, and lived here we moved here. I don't remember living anyplace else, but I don't think we moved here until the late 40s. I was born in 1943. And my dad was drafted in the fall. I was born in December, and they let him, I think this is remarkable, it's World War II, and they let him stay home until after I was born.
What about your dad's side of the family going back? How long were they in this area?
I know a lot about them. The Germans, the Clemenses were German, and they came in 1750, 60, maybe. I have to look at the records. But they came from Saarbrücken, that area. And I always think they came here to get away from the wars and got here just in time for the revolution. But there was two of them, Jacob and Jacob II, that were fought in the revolution at Oriskany, and they are on the monument down there. Their name is spelled wrong, but they're on there. They spell it Clements, and that's the way his discharge papers are marked, is with that spelling. So somebody just got it wrong, and you know, I don't suppose they could read or write either, you know. But so then they, when they came here, a man named Hassencleaver had paid their passage, and then they had to work off paying the, you know, had to pay off their passage, and they worked at getting potash for him. How do you say it?
Potash, yeah.
Yeah. That's what they did. I don't know how, maybe 5 or 6 years, and paid off their passage. And then they all settled on farms down in Westernville area, down around there. And then in 1850, Peter Clements decided to move to Osceola. One thing, the land was cheap, and the other thing, my grandfather said, was that the spruce, a blight hit the spruce trees, and it opened up seams in the spruce, and so the gum would bleed out, and it was a good product. You know, those people were subsistence farmers. They did whatever else they could to survive, along with the small farms. So they would go into the woods and use a special tool to, in the winter this was, when it was cold, so it would snap off. And they caught it in this big bag that was on the end of their tool, and I'm sure they always brought it home and dumped it on the table for the women to clean, because it's messy stuff.
I bet it was.
And so that's what they did, and they sold it to people in Vermont or New York City. I don't know how they arranged to get it there or anything, but 50 cents a pound.
Wow.
So that was a good product for them, and you know.
Can you describe what that would be used for?
They used it for pharmaceuticals or chewing gum, like you would today for chewing gum. I never thought it tasted all that great.
People still do that when you're growing up?
Yeah, we'd go out. Yeah. Never, and we didn't pay any attention whether it was pine or spruce. It all has gum, so.
Can you tell us more about growing up on the land here?
You know, we took it all for granted, but now I look back and I feel so lucky, because my mother was home with us all the time, and we just ran and played and, you know, went for cows, and my sister did more of that kind of stuff than I did. But we'd go. I remember once rabies was prevalent, and so the state trapper, that's what I remember, the state trapper, I don't remember who he was, but he came here and set traps, and I was scared to death to go out in the fields for fear I'd step in one of the fox traps. But you know, that kind of thing. I remember running up the hill one morning. I think maybe my cousin was here from the city. And I remember running up the hill. Somebody had seen something or wanted something. And in my nightgown and my bare feet. And the grass was kind of long. And running up that hill with the dew on the grass. Now, that's a great memory for me. And I don't think it's something that most kids would even... But I remember that. It's probably one of the first things I remember, other than wetting my pants when I'd go out in the cold snow.
had a friend that we went to school together, and she was going with a friend of George. He would go with her sister, with his friend's sister when they went out, so they went out on a double date. And she kind of wanted to get a hold of George, so she arranged it for me to go out with him instead of Polly one night. And so it was the 12th of May, and we went out to dinner, and 3 of us had spaghetti meatballs. He had to have a steak because he didn't eat any vegetables, you know. So we went down on Route 12 up by Clayton, and we were sitting in a restaurant where we could look up and see the bridge. Well, this was during World War II. No gasoline, except he was a farmer and had gasoline. So we decided that, Marge decided we ought to go to Canada. So we went across the bridge. And our first date, we got home at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Whoa, what did your parents think of that?
My mother never knew it till long after I was married. I was spending the night with Marge.
Oh.
And his folks and her folks were walking the floor. My mother was sleeping peacefully. But the next day we had a date to go fishing. I think what we were going to do, and of course.
What year was that? You
45.
Ah.
What was it like going across the border then?
Nothing.
No checks or like it is now?
No, nothing at all.
You just went?
World War II and nothing at all, you know. Well, we had to stop and tell where we were going, what we were going to do.
Oh, they did have a stop.
Yeah, you had to report in.
It was.
So what did you do? Go to a restaurant there in Canada?
Our goal was to go to Montreal, which was pretty foolish, you know, but we didn't know it. We got as far as Ottawa.
Oh.
And we went to a park and drove around the park, and daffodils were just coming out, and they had the cup and saucer daffodils. I just loved them, so I picked a bouquet. And not only that, I put them up in the back window of the car. And as we came across the bridge, nobody said a word about them, you know. Not only that, we had to have gas somewhere along the way. And the old gas pumps where you grind up the handle and let them come down, it was held together with a padlock.
Oh.
So the boys broke the padlock, filled the car with gas.
Now
gas was like $10 a gallon, and they left a $20 bill fastened to the pump to pay for the gas and pay for the thing, which was far more than it was. We couldn't raise anybody, and we had to get home, so.
Right.
Here all my life. I was born in Watertown, of course. My folks lived here. And
What were their names?
Clarence and Cora.
Clarence?
Cora Green. Cora Green Bibbins. I was Beverly Green Bibbins.
And
I'm just taking out a slip to write some notes for backup. Sorry.
she was a Green.
So she was Cora Green.
Were they born in this area as well?
I think so, weren't they?
Bibbinses were Rodman, weren't they?
Yeah. Well, that's this area.
Yeah, just down the road a few miles. But she was a Rutland girl, wasn't she?
Yeah. I don't know.
What nationality are you?
Pardon?
What nationality?
John Bull English.
English? It's interesting to hear, you know, how people emigrated, all different nationalities.
No, our ancestors were from this country.
Uh-huh. At some point, they probably emigrated, though, right?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
She knows.
My
tell you.
my family was Green family, and they've got records back to not the Mayflower, but boats shortly thereafter from England.
Really?
And they've got history back to where they were diddling in England. One of my relatives was an Episcopalian priest up north. I don't know who, but
You can.
back when I was being told all those things, I didn't think they were important, and now I would cry for them, you know.
To go back a bit to your parents, so what were they doing in Swankit's Mills? What did they do?
Dad, when he first moved up from Swankett Mills,
So I got to start right at the beginning to tell
Yeah,
you how
let's
this
go.
happened.
We'll listen.
He come up here from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I probably shouldn't tell you all this because you won't want to read the book then.
Oh, no,
this is what
it's
the book is about.
No, don't
promise
worry.
we'll read the
Yeah,
book.
we're
And,
not gonna.
he come up here from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania on what they call the orphan train.
He was on the orphan.
Yes, on one of the orphan trains.
Can you explain what that is?
Well, the orphan train is, they come from a Catholic home in Philadelphia.
Orphans. They weren't all orphans.
And they got put in the home for whatever reason, him and his brother Dick. We don't know if any of the rest of them did or not. I don't know, because we lost track of a lot of them.
His first name was what again?
Andrew. My dad's name was Andrew, yes.
Okay.
And my uncle's name was Richard.
Okay.
And they come up here on this orphan train, and what happened, they got put in this Catholic home. We don't know why, we don't know for sure when, or what year, how old they were, but apparently we're guessing they're around 6 or 7 years old, or 8 years old, somewhere in that area. And once they got in the orphan home, even though they weren't orphans, but I guess they used them as just a home for boys, you know, and whatever. And we've decided that we've looked into it and tried to find out where it was. And the nearest one we could figure it would be was St. Vincent's home, and that's right on the Delaware River. And why I say this, we think that's what it was. The Delaware River runs right by the place. And Brother Dick, or my Uncle Dick and my dad broke out of the home and started swimming across the Delaware River. And they caught him about halfway across before they didn't drown, but they got him back. And the minute they got him back, they broke him up, put him, so they wasn't together. And shortly afterward, we don't know their dates. You can't get no information on any dates. They don't want to know nothing. They won't tell you anything. But we do know that they come up here shortly after that on this orphan train.
Wow.
See, what did the Catholic home to ship them out, get rid of them, they're trouble out of here, and with a bunch of others. There was about, as far as we can figure out, there was about 20 or 22 of them come up on the orphan train that time that was placed around the Camden, Florence area. And my dad went with a fellow by the name of Bill Sullivan. He owned a farm over in what they call the Irish settlements, over 46 corners now. There ain't nothing there anymore but woods. At that time, there's a bunch of Irish farmers up in there, which was all affiliated with the Catholic Church, and that's why all this took place. And well, I understand it. He and a bunch of the other farmers met the train at Camden. And he chose my dad to take him, supposedly to give him a good home and
What they chose
bring
them
him up.
for is to be workhorses.
But they basically run to work the farm, and that's what, that's what happened. And my uncle Dick, he went with I believe the people that got him was named Kennedy, and it wasn't too far away. They didn't know it at the time. They didn't even know each other come up on the same train. Didn't realize it until later on. And this is a hell of a story. That's why I wanted to write this book.
Yeah, you need to.
In a couple of years, we don't know for sure there, but I've heard and I've understood that about a year and a half, 2 years, somewhere in there, Dad was taking the milk from his farm to the cheese factory out toward Florence, and Uncle Dick was coming back, or vice versa, one way or the other, with empty cans from his farm, and met on the road and recognized each other.
Oh my God.
Oh.
Didn't even realize they was in the same area, and it's only probably a quarter of a mile or so
7,
apart.
8 years old.
Oh my goodness.
7 or 8, and this is a hell of a story. And this is all
So they
true.
were at 7 and 8 about when they
About
met each
that,
other?
yes.
And they met each other on
I don't know the exact age. We don't know because it's there's no, nobody kept records, kept track of anything. But we do know that's the truth because Uncle Dick told the same story his dad did, and I've heard it many times. I'm going to try to do the one I wrote for her and I. Walking Arm in Arm is the name of it.
You'll make us cry.
It's a story about us on this old place here. And at the time I wrote it, we'd been on this place about 20 years. Now it's over 50 years. If I remember how it goes. Well, I got to change keys here. Something wrong. I can't sing in that key, I think, right now. Okay, go down and see you get down here. The key of A, I'm in there. You probably know more about this music stuff than I'll ever know.
I don't know about that.
Let me start that again because it's over 50 years now. For over 50 years we've lived on this old hilltop farm. Many times we've roamed the meadows dear, walking arm in arm. I've enjoyed it oh so much, sweetheart, when I think back over the past. Oh, there's been times when both of us thought our love wouldn't last. We're both getting older now and all the kids are gone. We still have each other dear as we sit here on the lawn. Thinking of the past sweetheart as we stroll across the farm. Enjoying every moment dear as we walk arm in arm. Though the meadows have all grown to brush till we can no longer roam, I just think how sweet it is to have our happy home. And when it comes our time to go and work for the master's farm, I know we'll have each other dear and still walk arm in arm. Yes, we'll still walk arm in arm across God's meadows green. I know that we'll be happy dear, just like a happy dream. I'm sure we'll have each other dear as we stroll across God's farm. I know that we'll be happy dear and still walk arm in arm.
I live in Camden, New York, and have always lived in Camden, New York. And my father's family settled in the Point Rock area on the Yorkland Road, and they ran a farm there. His father and mother, his father came from Germany and his mother came from Switzerland. And I never knew my grandparents on either side. My mother, I believe her parents came over as a result of the Irish famine, and they settled right in the Camden area. And part of their homestead is now included in the village of Camden's watershed.
Oh.
But anyways, my father grew up with a brother and 3 sisters, and they had a cheese factory, which wasn't that uncommon in that era because of the transportation problems. You couldn't haul milk 50 miles. So there were small schools and several cheese factories that supplied people with that product. And my grandfather also produced charcoal. My father used to tell about how they would make charcoal, and they would construct a rick, and with chunks of wood, Reader's Digest description, and then they would cover it with, I think, wet straw or hay and soil, and have a hole in the top, like in chemistry, when you would use the Bunsen burner and the test tube to make it, and light it, and then after it had burned, it was uncovered, and he used to haul it over to Malleable Iron in Westmoreland with a horse and buggy, of course, wagon, and they used it over there in that process of making whatever they made over there. All sorts of iron objects.
Well, I'm Warren Mathis. I've lived in West Leyden all my life. I grew up and went to school in West Leyden Central School, and I graduated in 1952. And I've worked in the woods all my life. I never went to college, and I enjoyed the woods, and I was instrumental in starting Mathis logging with my father and 2 brothers, John and Rod. And so we own a lot of land on Tug Hill, and a lot of virgin timber on it, and some of it is in an easement. And so we manage it, and we also had you wasn't on the
hike, right?
Was you on the walk there?
No, I missed that. That was quite a few years
I led an old growth walk on one of our woodlots, where there's virgin timber stand like this. So we manage it. We don't clear cut it. We manage it and protect the young trees that are coming up, so that the future generations, whoever owns it will have timber.
Wow. Wonderful.
So, and I remember what it says in my book there about the Tug Hill was been cut off back years ago. It was virgin timber on it, and some of the virgin spruce never been cut before. Virgin timbers when it never was cut before.
Wow.
Anyways, on my speech that I gave at the Woodsman's Field Day, I told how we used to go up there, walk up there, and the big spruce and hemlock the timber stood so thick that you couldn't see the sun. And all that timber was cut off by Lions Falls Pulp and Paper down in Lions Falls, and the virgin spruce, which has a dense, heavy dense for a paper, that was put into the World War II, and that big spruce was the paper, like I said, made such good paper that was used to pack the bombs that the B-25s. When they went on missions during the war, and so because when the paper was so dense and made such good paper that it wouldn't get wet. 1943 it was. They cut the whole Tug Hill off in the virgin timber.
Wow. 1943.
Yeah, during the war. Yeah, and it was all the paper came from Lions Falls, from Gould Paper Company. They're the ones that owned it then.
Had there been no logging in there before that?
No.
Wow.
So
It never was cut before.
and they clear cut it when they cut it. They clear cut.
Yeah, because all these big spruce, if they didn't cut them, the wind would break them over. But since then, they chipped it. The hardwood, they come in afterwards and got the hardwood and chipped it. Now it looks just like a clearing. And most of Tug Hill's like that now.
Yeah.
They use the chippers, but nobody remembers the Tug Hill.
Virgin.
Not many people can remember. Maybe George Getman. You know George Getman?
Yeah, he was our neighbor.
George used to work up there. We worked on that land there, and that's where we got 2 woodlots in that. That's where a lot of this flooring came from, one of our woodlots.
But you protected some part of that.
Yeah.
Teresa Terry, Zimmer Evans Cataldo, and I was born on Mohawk Hill in a snowstorm in 1932, January 1932. I was the first in my immediate family to be born on the Zimmer Homestead Farm, which was in our family for 150 years plus. And the doctor who delivered me was Dr. Ringrose, and you can imagine what kids would do with that name. And I went to school at the Green Egg District number 3 for Constableville School, and I never had to ride. I had to walk to school. My 2 older sisters either walked or rode the milk sleigh, but the year I started school, we had a sleigh bus that was closed, and rode to school in the sleigh bus. And
how was it powered?
Oh, it was powered with 2 wonderful, beautiful Morgan horses. They're a small black breed. And we rode back and forth to school. I'd be wide awake in the morning, but boy, when the afternoon would come and we'd ride along like this in the sleigh, I would fall asleep about every afternoon. And on the way home, one day we went across where the road had been plowed, and there was a snowbank there, and the sleigh tipped over. The horses didn't tip over, but we were upside down in the sleigh, and we managed to get out. I don't know. I think that Andrew Silman, our bus driver, and his son managed to get out, and then they pulled the the rest of us out of the sleigh, out of the sleigh bus, and set the sleigh back up again, and we went the rest of the way home.
Wow.
No damage done to our bus.
Right.
In front of our house would have been over here.
Oh, so on your road. And
Yeah.
this is a little sleigh with the milk cans on it. Wow. Where are you? Which one are you? Betty?
Well,
Are you the
let's
one
see.
standing up?
Yes, I
Look
am.
at her. Look at
I'm not the
this.
tallest one, but
Isn't that
I was the
adorable? I have to take a still picture
I must
of
have been
these.
standing on a milk can or something.
Oh, isn't that adorable?
Wow.
Is that your father here?
Yes.
So where is he pulling the milk to? Where are you
Oh,
taking it?
it's where they got on the milk sleigh. They
But would this sleigh be drawn by a horse? Or
yeah, this wouldn't be drawn by a horse, but the bigger milk sleigh
Yeah.
would.
So he would pull it. I mean, obviously it looks functional.
Yeah.
So he would pull it where? To the other sleigh and unload it on
Yes,
this?
yes.
Oh, so it went from the barn
this
to the...
wasn't where he would usually stop with that
okay.
sleigh. But
you posed
it
for the
was just
picture.
for a picture purpose.
Right.
And this
right.
is my father's sense of humor. He would get down on his knees and aim the camera up, and there's the chimney and the tip of the roof.
And look at the snowplow.
Yeah.
1947, I heard. Wow. We had a 47 Ford, yeah.
And here's up on the tree. And
Oh, look, and I didn't see the child. A camouflage. That's a
Yes.
great picture. Oh, gosh. Who is that? Can you tell?
Let's see.
I didn't see the child at first.
By the hat, it's Lloyd. That's a boy's hat, and us girls didn't
Can I
have
take a
hats
picture
like
of
that.
that? That is
Oh, sure.
terrific.
Okay, Edwin P. Russell Jr., born here in Rome, New York, in 1926. And I've lived most of my life here, except for the years I was in schooling, most of it in New York City.
Mm-hmm. Were your parents from here as well?
No. My parents, my father came from Crown Point up on Lake Champlain. He trained in New York City where he met my mother, who was a nurse at the New York hospital where he was. And they came here to Rome when he set up practice. He wanted to get away from the big city.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my feeling. Well, I did the same training in New York at Cornell Medical College and Lenox Hill Hospital, and loved New York City. And when I was a youngster, knew I did not want to live there. Mm-hmm. Still would like to go back, but it's too big.
Yeah, it is big.
Did you grow up knowing that you wanted to go into medicine?
No, I don't think so. I can vaguely remember being asked once in junior high school, and presumably giving that answer, but without any knowledge of even what medicine was. And the other thing probably is I enlisted in the Navy before I'd gotten out of high school, and got pushed in the Navy into the hospital course. Sometime I must have indicated a preference for medicine.
Mm. So with you going to treat people, like, was there a lot of home remedies people were using, or, how'd they treat themselves before you got there?
I'm sure that there were, but they weren't. I was after that era.
Yeah.
The big thing I remember when I came back to Rome and practiced my father, he did his own dispensing. He had his own, yes, he had his own medicine there, and would give the patient that, and would mix it.
Oh,
that
really?
And now that was at a time when I think there was just the start of one drugstore in Rome. or the time I remember, which would have been in the mid-30s, there was a drugstore. Quite, and all the doctors did dispense their own medicine.
Yeah.
Patients certainly had their own remedies for these things. And interestingly enough, now they're not only back in style, they work.
Yeah.
Vinegar. My mother said vinegar cures
Vinegar
everything.
is good for anything.
Yeah.
Do you make switchel?
No, but I heard of it. We used to probably made our own concoction when we hate it.
Switchel was the hay farmers'
Yeah.
drink made with vinegar, ginger, and sugar. You might use molasses instead of the sugar. I grew up on that in Crown Point. I can remember in the 30s being told to go down in the ice house and get a block of ice to put in the milk pail to carry the pail of switchel out to the farmers who were doing real work.
It was like an electrolyte solution, wasn't it? Like a little bit, or no?
No, my father would have said it was a carminative.
Carminative.
Speaking of your folk remedies, ginger, I think, is a thing called carminative. It tones up the stomach. It's why ginger ale is a success. And of course, everybody had their own vinegar they made, and they had some sugar. So the big thing with the so-called switchel, you could drink a quart of it and you'd not feel waterlogged. If you think about it, drinking a quart of water, you begin to feel sick. The carminative effect must shrink or tone up the stomach so you feel better.
Yeah. How do you spell switchel?
Switchel.
Yeah.
I have Agnes Kelly's recipe from my mother. My daughter, who lives out west of Camden below Jameson Corners, makes it, and I go out there because I can drink hers. Don't have to remember to make mine.
I remember.
Did you hear much about what his experience was like, being even earlier than you were working? Can you tell stories about?
No, we never talked about that so much. Since you come from the snow country, I remember he at times would have to snowshoe down into Rome. We lived, half a mile north of the hospital. He would have to snowshoe back and forth. The plows couldn't open the roads at that time.
Isn't that something?
With all his tools and everything?
Yeah.
What was his name?
The same, I'm a junior.
Oh.
When and where were you born?
I was in Niagara Falls.
Niagara Falls.
And my mother and father come from Poland.
What year were you born?
1927. Yeah.
And when did your parents come over from Poland?
Probably 1920, 1918, 15. The exact date, I don't know.
Did they talk
But they
much
came
about
on
it?
ship. They unloaded at the Statue of Liberty. And from Statue of Liberty to up here on the hill, there was no transportation. They walked. All the way.
Oh my goodness.
Really?
What a little bit of the belongings they had, right?
Yeah.
They walked from where?
Statue of Liberty all the way up to the old farm, which is 2 miles up.
Right.
Yeah.
Fair enough. So how did your parents end up coming here in particular, do you know?
Because she had what they called an aunt, lived up on the hill. Govlik was her name.
Right.
Mr. and Mrs. John Govlik.
Okay.
And they must have been, were they some relation to my mother or not? I'm not sure.
I think maybe an aunt.
Yeah. Okay.
And they sent him a visa, and
Wow.
first I think my father came, and then couldn't find a girlfriend over here, so they called back to Poland, and she said, "Yeah, I'll come."
Oh, yeah. Well, what first happened is Govlik's daughter was in good tuberculosis time. She passed away. And my father was supposedly dating with her. So then Govlik called.
That's the only daughter they had.
and my mother. That's how my mother come over.
Really?
Yeah.
She took a leap, didn't she?
And you know, they couldn't cure her, so one of the windows up in the old house drilled a hole, because the doctor said you need fresh air. And that plug is still there in that window.
In your house?
No, up on the hill.
Oh.
That one you took the picture of.
Oh. Wow.
You know, but it didn't work. You know, they didn't have medication or whatever.
He was in Niagara Falls for a while.
Yeah, that's what I said.
But then he was in Niagara Falls, you know, there was 7 or 8 of us. And then my aunt had a little farm first. Then she went down and bought that big farm with the 2 people. She had my father taught into it, and oh, that was a big deal. So my father come over here, the 2 farms were put together in one.
Oh, so there was enough land.
Yeah, that was in 1927, so it had to be probably 28.
So big.
From Niagara Falls.
Wow.
So your mom would have joined him before he went to Niagara Falls?
Huh?
Your mom would have joined him here before they went to Niagara Falls?
She was married here, you know. She was married in Martinsburg church. The farm of this church was in Martinsburg first.
Oh, before this one was built.
Yeah,
What year was this one built?
29.
Was it
I got the book, I got that.
I think that's what the car still got.
Yeah, that's probably the date then. So
Well, I'm Benjamin P. Coe, Ben, and I was the first executive director of the Tug Hill Commission. Let's see, I remember being interviewed. I'm a very unexpected kind of nominee to be a Tug Hill Sage, and it was a great honor. But I'm the only one that never lived on Tug Hill. And when we came up in the area to be interviewed in 1973, it was, I believe, August of 73, we were seeing Tug Hill for the first time. And so it was an amazing experience right from the beginning, meeting all these commission members who had been appointed by the governor and the heads of the 2 legislature bodies of the state. And they were all from Tug Hill, all residents of Tug Hill communities.
So I have a question for you then, Peggy. How involved did you feel in all this? Were you part of it? Were you observing it?
Well, I was certainly supporting it. Ben brought me up here for the first time on Columbus Day weekend in '73, and we climbed the fire tower.
I think that was in High Market.
High Market, the High Market Fire Tower.
still there.
And
Oh no, or was it the one in Redfield?
no, I think it was.
Anyway,
yeah,
we climbed
I
it.
think it was High Market, and the color was extravagant. I mean, it was unreal.
Fall.
Yeah, it was really beautiful. So, but we felt at home in the community here. We had 2 children in school here, and we've been here now, you know, over 40 years. Ben was with the commission for 20. We could have moved any place in the world, and we chose to stay here because this is the kind of life we like to live.
So would you say, did you feel at home from the beginning?
Yeah.
I think we did.
Wow.
I can remember we rented a house on Thompson Boulevard for a few months before we bought our house. And I can remember 2 weeks after we moved in, Ben came home with a pair of snowshoes for me. so I could go to the market.
That's perfect.
But we both took up cross-country skiing. We both had been downhill skiers. I not very good, but
Me neither.
But we improved some, but we really enjoyed the cross country. And I think Ben probably took me on every road in Tug Hill over the time he was with the commission. We went everywhere.
I bet.
Where the roads, you got up on top and the roads kept getting narrower and narrower and narrower.
You still show her some of those.
The church up there on the top, you know. Geez, it was.
We put together the Tug Hill Trekkers, which did
hikes.
a cross. Well, no, did a cross country ski tour somewhere around Tug Hill every Saturday.
Yeah. And it was a lot of fun.
We also set up a canoe group that would, in the summer, do a canoe trip somewhere around.
When did you start doing those things?
Sometime in the mid to late 70s. And they lasted quite a long time.
Was that all good friends of yours doing it, or other open to?
It was open to anybody, but you know, you talk to somebody and they say, "Oh, that would be a lot of fun."
It was sort of word of mouth.
Yeah, yeah.
But
and
we
everybody
knew,
was welcome. I mean, you didn't. It was not a closed group by any means. If you just somebody would say where it was going to be, and up on Carpenter Road or wherever, and you'd all meet someplace and go, and we'd climb around in Inman Gulf and look for fossils.
Yeah, my name being George Capron, George William Capron, and I was named after my two grandfathers, George O. Capron and William Ertz, born in, well, they grew up in Prussian settlement back over Sliding. So I was named after each one. And the ironic thing is, my grandfather, George, he died August 13th, 1934. I was born August 13th, 1944. He was a character in his young days. He traveled with these, like Buffalo Bill, Wild West shows. And he knew Buffalo Bill. And it's documented in the Boonville Herald that Buffalo Bill came to Boonville to see an old friend, George Capron, on Summit Street. And it was in the paper. And he was quite a character. And back then he was more of a bricklayer. He did a lot of the work on the Boonville Baptist Church, Lyons Falls, in the original school. He was one of the bricklayers on that. And he survived in the wintertime. He was a snowshoe maker. And he sent his all over the country. And we still have some of his print list of all the different models he made. He made like 15, 18 different models. So after he passed away, they were in my dad's barn, and we donated them all to the Adirondack Museum up there at Blue Mountain Lake.
I don't think you can find a more attractive place. The St. Lawrence River, Tug Hill, the Lake Ontario. I mean, it's all. Well, why are people coming from other areas and buying property up? Why are the village of or the town of Richland, which you're in, has about 45,000 people. In the summer, it has 25,000. Now all these people are coming in. As you've noticed, and I want to call up John Johnson, congratulate him. He did this, these stories on poverty. I think that was an excellent thing to do. I think we have got to find, I've tried and back then when I was in I did the Urban Development Corporation, which is now the Empire State Development Corporation. But I think we have to find a way of educating those that can't find jobs, or can maybe find a job and can't hold it down.
You play fiddle, right?
Yeah, yeah, I'm a fiddler.
How long have you done that?
59 years. I started when I was 7. I just love it.
I bet you have a lot of fun with it.
Well, it isn't as important today as it was in the early days. But in the early days, that's the only kind of music they had. They didn't have any radios, they didn't have any television. Most people couldn't afford a piano. A guitar was unheard of back in those days. But a fiddle was so small. Like when they came over from Europe with their fiddles, they could carry it on a wagon seat, or they could carry it under the wagon seat, or even hook it onto their saddle. And then they made fiddles. They made them out of cigar boxes and out of corn stalks. I've heard of all sorts of things, but my great uncle was a fiddler, and my great grandfather was a fiddler. How much farther back that it went than that, I don't know, but I know it went back when I wanted to play. And so I played all my life. I really enjoy it.
Are there a lot of fiddlers on the hill now?
Well, we counted up the fiddlers that people around here could remember. And there was 22 right in this little town of Osceola that people could put their minds to. They used to, you know, the old crank telephones. Jim Adams used to call up Stanley Rowell, and they used to learn tunes over the telephone. They'd play it, crank up the telephone, and Jim would play a tune, and Stanley'd work on it till he got it, or Stanley'd play a tune, and Jim would work on it. And they used to learn tunes over the telephone. I don't imagine the other people on the line, but Jim said that people used to take their phones down and listen. So they had done that.
That sounds like the first radio. You pick up the party line, you had a radio.
Yeah.
Sure. Built-in entertainment.
There aren't too many tunes that are actually New York State tunes that actually derived right from this this area. I've written some. George Heritage written some. You could say they derived from this area, but there aren't too many that derive right from this area. But there are old fiddle tunes that aren't played anyplace else. That came down probably from Ireland and from Scotland and like that, but they aren't played anyplace else. And those are the ones that we like to preserve and keep playing.
In fact, in the western states, they put in contests, they don't require jigs anymore.
No.
Because nobody can play them anymore.
People
But
don't.
New York State has kept jigs alive. We play a lot of jigs here.
Can you play it some?
Oh yeah. I'll play with the Irish Russian one.
I've become associated with Constable Hall since I got rid of the business, because I couldn't do it before, I just didn't have the time. That's 24 hours a day then. And been trying to bring it back into the history of the area and get it developed so that people understand this whole North Country was part of the original Macomb Purchase, and all this is tied together, and Constable Hall was kind of the center of the outcropping of all the things that have happened since then. I realized a lot of the area had people in it before William came up here and started to try and develop it, but still it goes back to that one point of where the greatest part of the development came through the Constable Hall area. And I've been working on that, and I've had some very fine experiences meeting the different historians of these local towns, and don't think they aren't dedicated now. You get,
Oh, yes.
oh, they are something.
The Macomb Purchase, would you like to tell us about that?
Yes, the Macomb Purchase was a tremendous land deal, there's no question about it. William Constable, Alexander Macomb, and Daniel McCormick bought approximately, it's between 3.5 and 4 million acres of the state of New York, which really is about 1/10 of the state. And they realized the potential of this area. Of course, the Indians were here and other people had been through here, but nobody had actually looked the thing over and decided to purchase it. So they purchased it from the state. They paid around, I think it was 25 pence an acre at that time, which is around 13 or 14 cents an acre in good old U.S. change. And then, of course, once they got into this, they bought it from the state. They did not buy it from the Indians. A lot of people think that they bought it from the Indians. They didn't. They bought it from the state of New York. That's what makes the state liable for any claims that the Indians are having against the area now. And of course, with this land, they were interested in developing it.
Well, since this is a series on Tug Hill, I'd like to get your estimate of where Tug Hill is located. We've heard a lot of different stories on this one.
It's back of there. You know, that's what the old timers said.
Oh, yes.
You somewhere back there. And even if you were up in the middle, halfway, 3/4 of the way up the hill, it was always just a little further on. But when we got into this, because I am on the Tug Hill Commission, in fact, I'm one of the oldest members. Myself and Dick Marks were original appointees, and we're still sticking it out. I perhaps should be off of it now because, you know, I haven't had time to go to some recent meetings, and there seems to be so many things to do, but it's been an enjoyable job. But we approached it at the start by saying, well, yes, we know where the core of Tug Hill is, like, you know, the core towns, like Harrisburg and Osceola and Montague. I especially think Montague could be the center of the hill if any place was the center of Tug Hill. But anyhow, it's not only Tug Hill by the land mass, but we also looked at soil types, which were continuous. And we looked at the type of forest that was there, and that was continuous. And so we brought it right down to Oneida Lake on the south and almost into the Black River. On the north, basically we let the Black River run as a boundary